Welcome! This is my first shiny compilation for the channel. I'm a relatively new hunter in terms of YouTube, and in terms of how long I've actually been hunting. I started seriously shiny hunting back in April of 2021, but I've tried getting into it a couple times since the Diamond and Pearl days, without any luck. But all it really took was my first successful shiny hunt, and I was hooked. It's worth noting, I only hunt on one system at a time. Except for one situation, simply because I don't trust myself to multi-hunt, but I make up for it with time and focus. So the soft reset hunts usually take around a month to reach odds, and the random encounter hunts can be done around a week, 46 hours. At this stage, I've been able to collect 2 boxes worth of Kanto shinies, and I think it's about time to organize them. About a third of these hunts have a video, and even less of them I captured the moment I found them. So this will be a show and tell of all of my Kanto shinies, regardless of if they have a video or not. In the background, I'll be putting them in Pokédex order since they're currently in the order I got them. We have just over 60 shinies to get through, so let's get going. I decided to start with mostly soft reset hunts because it seemed less risky. So for my first Kanto shiny hunt, of course I had to go with the first Pokemon in Dex order, Bulbasaur. It took me about a week to get the Bulbasaur, and I was still learning how soft reset hunts work in Gen 3. Only Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald actually have issues with soft reset hunts, but I didn't understand that fully at the time. So seeing Bulbasaur shine was a huge weight off my shoulders. And after getting this first Bulbasaur, I had dinner, decided to trade it to Fire Red, and start my second Bulbasaur hunt right away. And only 3 hours later, I had already gotten my second shiny. 2 in a single day is uncommon for a lot of hunters to get, especially in Gen 3. And I somehow managed to break that record immediately. I managed to get Oak's Parcel, get Pokeballs, and then within a couple encounters after getting the Pokeballs, a Pidgey shined. So 3 in one day. So my shiny hunting journey started with 3 in one day. How could I not get hooked on shiny hunting? To this day, this is the most shinies I've gotten in a single day, and I don't think that record's going to be broken. I felt the pain of a slow hunt with this Magikarp hunt. It took me 27 days to get the Magikarp, and I was starting to worry again if I didn't understand soft reset hunts. But luckily that seemed to not be the case. So continuing on my soft reset journey, I went for an Eevee and managed to get that in only 7 days. I decided not to evolve this one and keep it as an Eevee, since I was going to need all of the Gen 1 Eevees anyway. I next decided to go for an Abra because I heard it was very quick to do and it was in the same city. So how could I not? And in only 2 days it shined. Definitely recommended as an intro to shiny hunting. So I decided why not keep going with this, and decided to go for a Pinsir next. Unfortunately, again, back to the 1 month average of 29 days to get this Pinsir, 21,000 of them bought. I decided to stop continuing on the game corner and go for a more interesting shiny next, but on the way, I decided to participate in Safari Week for my first time. I didn't end up succeeding in catching this Venomoth on screen, but it was exciting to actually get a shiny for Safari Week. And then I just went right back to hunting for Hitmonlee, and after 22 days of hunting, I managed to get Hitmonlee. In the same city, up in Pokémon Tower, I tackled the Lapras soft reset hunt. This one was a bit nicer, only taking just under 5,000 resets over 11 days. The last reset hunt that I could think of to do on a single save file was the fossils, so over to Cinnabar Island I went. And after 16 days I managed to revive a shiny Kabuto, again keeping it unevolved. Next went for an Aerodactyl, but he wasn't as kind. It took 28 days to revive a shiny Aerodactyl. I ended up taking a short break after the month-long Aerodactyl hunt and wanted to try out a random encounter hunt. I decided on a Tangela because it was 100% encounter rate and that was the only thing in the grass. So after a short break and only a day or so of hunting, I managed to get a Tangela in around 500 encounters. Having done all the soft resets I could come up with, I traded all of my shiny Pokemon onto my Leaf Green, which is to this day my hub save file. By this point I had heard you could hunt for shiny starters in Gen 1, and decided to leave myself the option of hunting them in Gen 1 by not getting the third Bulbasaur now, and started to do a Squirtle soft reset hunt. And after only 17 days of hunting, I got a shiny Squirtle. I decided to have some fun playing through Fire Red to get to the next soft reset hunt, and decided to try out a pacifist playthrough without any gift Pokemon. So almost this month was spent playing on that file before I wanted a break from a pacifist playthrough. So I came back over to Leaf Green to do another random encounter hunt for a hopefully quick shiny, and sure enough it was. In only around 600 random encounters, a shiny Weedle appeared. Wanting to tackle a tougher random encounter hunt, but still with decent chance of getting, I decided to go for a Tentacruel, because I had also decided I was going to catch any wild evolution stages that were available in their original games. So Tentacruel was tempting and I decided to go for it. With a 50-50 chance, I figured I would get it first try. Unfortunately I didn't, and I almost missed this shiny Meltan because it wasn't all that noticeable. But I managed to catch it, and then managed to get the Tentacruel on the second phase. This was a very slow hunt with a level 36 repel trick, and ended up taking 103 days just to get this one shiny, with a couple breaks here and there, as this was a tedious hunt. But it definitely doesn't hold the record for my longest hunt. Excited to get Tentacruel after my longest hunt so far, decided to go right into his pre-evolution Tentacool. And only 52 minutes later, it shined. This is one of several 2-in-1 day shinies, which is an incredible amount of luck that I may need seeing as I'm only hunting on one game at a time. The next hunt that caught my eye was a shiny Cubone in Pokémon Tower. I decided I was also more interested in getting shinies in the mainland when possible, rather than the Sevi Islands where Cubone is more common. And after 23 days and almost 17,000 encounters, my first shiny was a Ghastly. This one was pretty slow for a random encounter hunt, because you can't run, and I was using a repel trick which slows the encounter rate. 4 days after that, I got my second Ghastly that I evolved into a Gengar. Because Haunter is also available here, I had to get a wild Haunter before this hunt was over. I stuck around here a little bit longer to try and get either a Haunter or a Cubone, but I only got another Ghastly. Deciding to take a break from Pokemon Tower and having reached the next soft reset hunt available on my Fire Red, I went for another Eevee. After around 11,500 soft resets, I managed to get my second Eevee. With that, I evolved into a Vaporeon. Going right back to Pokemon Tower, I managed a Haunter. It took just under 2 days after getting the Eevee. With only Cubone remaining to get in Pokemon Tower, I decided to keep hunting until Cubone shined. And after one more Ghastly, almost 26 days after the Haunter, I got the 14% Cubone. Personally, Cubone is one of my favorite shinies I've gotten, even though it's just another green of many. Deciding to try another soft reset hunt, I went back to Game Corner on my Fire Red copy to try and get a shiny Dratini. Because of the price of Dratini in Fire Red, I bought one Dratini and one Scyther each time. And 23 days after Cubone, I managed to get a shiny Dratini. After recovering my coins, I continued to buy one Dratini and one Scyther. And a couple weeks later, Scyther shined. Deciding to take a break from the Game Corner, I decided to go for the Hitmonchan soft reset hunt. And just under 20 days later, he shined. That will cover the Hitmons for Kanto's decks, and I'll get the other two in Johto someday. On to the next soft reset hunt. I wanted my second Kabuto to finish the line, but this one made me work for it. It took me 46 days to get the second Kabuto, which I evolved into a Kabutops. Deciding to do an easier hunt, I went back to Viridian Forest hoping to get another quick shiny. And in a quarter of the time of the last hunt, I got a shiny Caterpie, so I was happy. After getting Caterpie, I went back to my Pacifist playthrough to try and beat the Elite Four. And after doing so, I decided to keep going in Viridian Forest, and after only 3,000 encounters, I got my second Weedle that I evolved into a Beedrill. Again, I'm gonna need a wild Kakuna and a wild Metapod for me to be satisfied with the Viridian Forest bugs. And lucky enough, Kakuna was the next thing to shine after only 16 days. Around this time, I took a shorter break and decided to play something other than Pokemon for a few weeks. And when I picked it back up, after less than 3,000 encounters, I managed to get my second Caterpie that I could evolve into a Butterfree. All that remained was to get a Metapod. But that's not going to come anytime soon. I decided to commit to trying a Gen 1 hunt, deciding to get my final Bulbasaur. After doing some research, I also learned you could get a shiny Bulbasaur without the use of any glitches whatsoever. And up until this point, I had only seen people do it using the rare candy glitch to check. Knowing it was going to take some time and persistence, not 100% certain it was actually possible, I decided to do the hunt. I had also seen that shininess is not retained when transferring from Gen 1 into Pokemon Bank. So after checking in Gen 2 and seeing that it was shiny, I was nervous to up-transfer it into Pokemon Bank and find out if shininess was retained. And fortunately it was. Unfortunately, I did not get a picture of the Gen 1 Bulbasaur stats. And I didn't take a picture of its stats in the Gen 2 summary screen. So I wasn't even able to remake its summary screen with certainty that I had the right stats. I am able to tell that its HP was 20, which narrows it down to two possibilities for its attack stat. Its defense, speed, and special, I know with certainty. I'm also able to see the trainer ID number. But attack will always be a 50-50 chance if I'm correct or incorrect, because IVs are randomly assigned when you transfer a Pokemon from Gen 1 into Pokemon Bank. With the Bulbasaur lying down, I decided to go for the last Pokemon in Kanto's Pokedex number, Mew. I knew you could get Mew in Gen 1, but you had to do 2 glitches at a minimum. One glitch to get your trainer ID to match a event distribution in the past, and the trainer fly glitch to make Mew appear in the first place. But only those 2 were required. So, I started a fresh save file of Pokemon Yellow, named myself GF, and used a glitch to change my trainer ID number to 22976. I then played my way throughout the entirety of the game, collecting all 11 rare candies that are available, and then set up the trainer fly glitch to allow me to encounter Mew over and over at level 7 until the stats were a possible match, then using the rare candies, checking to see if it was shiny. By my estimate, it was about a 10-to-1 ratio of catches to possible checks, and after 371 checks, I had one that matched. So I went ahead and did a trade check with Gen 2 and confirmed it was shiny. Having learned my lesson with Bulbasaur, I made sure to get a lot of pictures. Far more than what I'm showing here. Up until this point, I had been trying to figure out how to get a shiny Meltan, and I learned that you could only get it from specific Pokemon Go events, at least for free. And as luck would have it, there was an event going on in March of 2023. So I booted up my Pokemon Go, made sure I had enough Pokeballs, and got to catching as many as I could every day. It's supposed to be a 1 in 64 odds, but I definitely did not get that. My first shiny Meltan took me 85 catches to find. And my second shiny Meltan took 177 captures to find my second shiny. So much for 1 in 64. And with that out of the way, I wanted to participate for the first time in Egg Month, which is hosted in April. Little did I know how unlucky I was about to be with a fire red leaf green egg hunt. I started egg hunting just before April, and only worked on hatching eggs until halfway through June. By that point, 3 months had almost passed, and I had no new shinies. So for my sanity, I decided, after collecting all the eggs, I was okay with doing a secondary hunt while hatching the eggs. And so after 129 days, my next shine ended up being a Snorlax soft reset hunt, which I was happy to finally break my drought. This was also a soft reset hunt I had been wanting to do for quite a while. And end the drought I did. I managed to get another shiny the next day, a Dugtrio, which was a 5% encounter without a repel trick in Diglett's cave. This saved me the time I would have to have spent on the slow 100% repel trick I was expecting to have to do, which is always nice. And then only a few days later I managed to get a Diglett, completing the Diglett line without having to use a repel trick. I then wanted to continue with my soft reset hunts. Having run out of soft reset hunts in my Fire Red file, I once again transferred all my shinies to Leaf Green and reset the save file on Fire Red. And after only 15 days I got my second Squirtle, which I evolved into a Wartortle. I then started what I'm confident will be the longest time I will spend on a single route, on Route 3. I knew I needed to get 2 Jigglypuff, 3 Nidoran male, and 3 Nidoran female here, because if I haven't mentioned up until this point, I want to catch all of my living decks in Pokeballs only, and I have up until now. So no Safari Zone hunts for me. So the first phase on Route 3, no surprise, was a Pidgey. And since I already had my Pidgey from my 3-in-1 day at the start of this one became a Pidgeot, because I also want to hunt a Pidgeotto in the wild. The next phase on Route 3 ended up taking over 14,000 encounters in 28 days. Mind you, I'm only hunting while hatching eggs, not while collecting. So the number of hours I can hunt on Route 3 in a given day are pretty low. Then, it was hinted that Pokemon Bank may be closing in the next year, so I decided now is the time to do my Gen 1 hunts, if I'm going to do them. So I got right into hunting a Charmander. And after 43 days of hunting, and roughly 7,000 soft resets, I got a shiny Charmander, which is the first for that line. Making sure to get lots of pictures, of course. And then continuing right along to get my remaining Gen 1 starter. After only 20 days of hunting, I got my last Squirtle, completing the line. You may have noticed some recolored pixel sprites for Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, and Mew. Around this time, I had been seeing a handful of people try their hand at recoloring the Gen 1 sprites, and decided it might be fun to try. And for Meltan and Melmetal, I wasn't a huge fan of the sprites I was able to find, so I tried my hand at making my own of those. And I think I did pretty decent. With my Gen 1 hunts out of the way, I returned to egg hunting and second hunting while hatching. And after only 3 days, I managed to get a shiny Porygon, which is another one of my personal favorite shinies. Continuing with this hunting method, I managed to get my longest hunt to date, almost 25,000 soft reset shiny Eevee, taking almost 50 days to obtain, which was evolved into a Jolteon. One more Eevee to wrap up the Kanto Eevee line. Returning to Route 3, I managed to find a Mankey to be my third phase after only 4 days of resumed hunting. It's still somehow the only Mankey I have from Route 3. Keep that in mind as we continue. And after only 8 days later, I managed to get a Jigglypuff. In between there, you might notice a shiny Celebi that I also managed to capture. There was no new news about if Pokemon Bank was going to close anytime soon, so I decided to hunt Celebi, even though I really wanted to wait until I finished Kanto. But we'll come back to him someday when I get to Johto. And then after 2 phases in almost 21 days, I managed to get my first shiny Nidoran, which will be one of 6 that I need here. Ironically, while watching someone's Safari Zone shiny compilation. And I finally managed to get a shiny Farfetch'd, taking almost 23,500 eggs. This hunt took me over 1,300 hours across almost exactly a year to finally obtain the shiny Farfetch'd. Egg hunting in Fire Red Leaf Green specifically is without a doubt the hardest hunt I've done and probably will be doing. And I have to do several more if I want them to be in Pokeballs only. Continuing with that, I managed to get a shiny Rhyhorn during 2024's Egg Month, after only 1,037 eggs. A lot faster than Farfetch, that's for sure. I'll have to hatch a second Rhyhorn for the Rhydon evolution, but I haven't gotten around to that one yet. Returning to finish Viridian Forest, I stubbornly tried to do a level 5 repel trick to get a Metapod because it was an 18% chance. But after getting 4 phases, 2 15% Kakuna, I decided to just go for the slow, but guaranteed level 6 repel trick to finally get my wild shiny Metapod after almost 40 days and 9,000 encounters. Going back to my preferred soft reset hunt, to Cinnabar Island once again and had the researcher revive my first Ammonite fossil, taking only 24 days, only around 2,700 soft resets. Going right back to Route 3, I managed to get my second Jigglypuff. This was only 1 day after Ammonite, but I had been on this route getting phase after phase for almost 127 days, with a couple of breaks here and there. You may notice the top left picture shows the first phase, which was me failing a shiny Nidoran male while I was still hunting Farfetch'd. This is one of the reasons I don't like to do more than one console at a time, because I don't trust myself to stay focused and not miss a shiny. So 5 phases after failing, I got a Jigglypuff. And 2 phases after that, only 4 days later, I managed to get a 1% shiny Nidoran female. Which is exciting, but I also really wanted to reclaim my shiny Nidoran male. But really, any Route 3 progress is definitely a win. Taking a short break, I decided to go for a unique hunt, a Rock Smash encounter. But while doing so, I managed to phase on a shiny Parasect, almost 30 days later. I had planned to hunt Parasect here anyway, which works for me. And for only 4 days after that, I managed to get my unique hunt, which is a Rock Smash encounter Graveler. This one was exciting for me because I hadn't seen anyone find a wild shiny Graveler in Fire Red Leaf Green till this point. And to my knowledge, I still haven't. So with persistence in hand, and 7 phases later, finally managed to reclaim my shiny Nidoran male. And this one became a Nidorino. Total time between failing and reclaiming was almost 174 days. Now that I had 2 Nidoran males, and I had already found a 1% shiny Nidoran female, needing 2 more shiny Nidoran females, I decided to switch and start hunting on Route 3 in Leaf Green so that I could get 2 Nidoran females and allow for the possibility of encountering a 1% Nidoran male, which somehow ended up happening 6 phases later. So I guess it's a good thing I switched for Leaf Green, and I still need those 2 Nidoran females. I decided to take a break, wanting to get 2 wild Machop, which it felt like I was getting everything but. After about 9 days of hunting and 8,000 encounters, I found a shiny Geodude. I was hoping to save Geodude hunts for Mount Moon, but as you will see, that definitely didn't pan out. And then continuing right along, after only 6 days later and over 5,000 encounters, I got a shiny Zubat. A green bat near Halloween is pretty funny, but I was hoping for a brown humanoid. No luck, even though the odds were in my favor. And then continuing right along, I managed to get a 5% wild Marowak after only 12 days. I was happy to get Marowak in Victory Road rather than go to the Sevi Islands to hunt it later. Continuing the hunt on Victory Road, wanting to get at least 1 shiny Machop. The next thing that shined was a shiny Onix after around 6 days, which I did need to get here eventually, but Machop was still the primary target. And then, 15 days later, I found a second Geodude, which I evolved into a Golem, completing the Geodude line. after almost 14,000 encounters. I have already ended up with another set worth of Geodude phases, unfortunately, and the next entry was my third 5% for Victory Road, a Primate. Some things just aren't meant to be, I guess, but I still have hope to get a Machop before the new year. In closing remarks, while I show the extra shinies I've gotten. If you stuck around until this point, thanks a lot. This video was the culmination of what I learned about making videos in my first year on YouTube. I had previously thought about making videos for these original hunts, but I wanted to prove to myself first that I was going to continue hunting and work toward the long-term goal of completing a shiny origin dex. I never really kept an exact count of encounters. I usually just kept track of the number of hours I hunted and got a low estimate of encounters per hour. This made it a lot less mentally taxing to do long duration hunts, because I was always underestimating how many encounters I was at. It wasn't until I did a Gen 1 hunt that I felt I had something worth sharing. And just to give you an idea how I make the videos nowadays, here is my recording setup. It's an old phone and a GameCube that needs to be warmed up like an egg for it to read a disc. If you are interested in seeing me struggle through egg hunts, or want to see me catch a shiny legendary in a Pokeball, consider subscribing. This video is basically my 50 subscriber special, which is awesome to reach in 1 year. If you find yourself in another episode of my living dex, consider leaving a comment. I really like questions or hearing about people's hunts, or even just congrats goes a long way on long, difficult hunts. And with that all said, that's about it. Good luck with all your hunts.